If you are over 50 years old and you still feel desire, you still get aroused, you still want sex, but you notice that your body does not always respond with the firmness it once did, I want you to listen carefully to this. The problem rarely starts in the bedroom. It starts much earlier, in something that almost no doctor explains clearly because it is not linked to a quick drug or an immediate solution. I am Dr. David Miller, a urologist, and over the years I have seen many men believe that penile response depends only on stimulation, desire, or testosterone. That is a mistake. An erection is a vascular phenomenon. It depends on blood arriving with strength at the right time and remaining under pressure. When that flow fails, desire may still exist, but the body does not follow. And here comes an uncomfortable truth. After 50, the system that carries blood to the penis becomes more sensitive to the wear of time. Silent inflammation, stiffening of blood vessels, reduced nitric oxide production. All of this happens gradually, without pain and without warning. The penis is simply the first organ to show that something has changed. Not because of weakness, but because its arteries are small and demand a fast response. What almost no one tells you is that certain foods do not act only as nutrition, but as biological signals. They communicate directly with the inner lining of blood vessels, influencing arterial flexibility and how blood circulates. And one of them, very common in the kitchen, is often underestimated or used the wrong way, completely canceling its potential. I am not talking about a trick or a miracle solution. I am talking about applied physiology, about understanding why some men maintain a more reliable penile response over the years, while others enter a cycle of frustration, constant monitoring, and loss of confidence in their own bodies. Today, I am going to show you a truth that is rarely explained this way. When you improve the internal environment of your blood vessels, the penis stops being an isolated problem and becomes a natural consequence of a system that works. Before we continue, check if you are already subscribed to the channel. Now, I want a very direct response in the comments. Write circulation. If you feel that your body can no longer sustain an erection like before, even when desire is present. Or write anxiety. If you notice that your mind goes on alert, you pressure yourself, and that shuts the response down in the moment. Now you need to understand something that completely changes how men see their erections after 50. The penis is not a muscle that loses strength. It is an organ that receives blood, and it receives that blood through extremely small, sensitive, and demanding arteries. That is why when circulation begins to lose efficiency, the first place it shows up is not the heart or the brain. It is the penis. Think of an erection as pressurized filling. The brain sends the signal, the nerves make the connection, but what decides whether rigidity happens or not are the blood vessels. They need to relax quickly to allow a large amount of blood to enter and stay there. When that relaxation does not occur, the blood may try to arrive, but it arrives weak, delayed, and insufficient to sustain firmness. After 50, what changes most is not desire. Many men still feel arousal, attraction, and interest. What changes is the quality of the endothelium, the inner lining of the arteries. Over time, this tissue suffers silent damage. Chronic inflammation, elevated blood sugar, oxidative stress, poor sleep, abdominal fat. The endothelium becomes stiffer, less responsive, and less capable of releasing nitric oxide, the molecule that tells the vessel to open. And here is the point few doctors explain honestly. The penile arteries are so thin that any loss of flexibility shows up there first. That is why many men say, "It starts, but it doesn't last," or "I lose it halfway." At first, it is not psychological, it is hydraulic. The system cannot maintain enough pressure inside the erectile tissue. When this happens repeatedly, the mind gets involved. The man starts anticipating failure, monitoring himself, and pressuring his own body. That vigilance activates adrenaline, which constricts blood vessels even more. A vicious cycle forms. Poor circulation leads to insecurity, insecurity leads to more vascular constriction, and the erection becomes even worse. Notice how everything connects. The penis is not giving up. It is exposing the real state of your circulation. That is why treating only the sexual moment is ineffective. The real path is improving blood flow, protecting the vessels, and restoring the body's ability to respond without effort. If this is making sense to you like this video now, that simple action helps this information reach more men who need to understand that the problem is not a lack of masculinity, it is a lack of flow. Now that you understand erections depend on circulation and that the penis is the first to feel vascular aging, it is time to look closely at something many men use every day without realizing its real impact on the body. Extra virgin olive oil is not just a dietary fad. It is a biologically active agent. Inside it are compounds that communicate directly with the endothelium, the inner layer of arteries that decides whether a vessel relaxes or remains rigid. And that is exactly where penile response begins or stops. The foundation of olive oil is monounsaturated fat. Unlike industrial fats, it does not inflame blood vessels. On the contrary, it helps keep arterial walls more flexible, less irritated, and more responsive to the body's chemical signals. For men over 50, this makes a significant difference because vascular stiffness is one of the main obstacles to blood entering the penis. But olive oil does more than provide structure. What truly makes it special are polyphenols. These compounds protect the vascular system. They reduce oxidative stress, a silent process that destroys nitric oxide before it can do its job. Without enough nitric oxide, arteries do not relax. And without relaxation, blood cannot enter with enough pressure to sustain an erection. Here is a critical detail. Many men believe they are using olive oil correctly, but in practice, they are not. Most benefits are found in true extra virgin olive oil, the kind with strong flavor, intense aroma, and a slight burning sensation in the throat. Refined or blended oils lose most polyphenols and provide mainly calories without real vascular benefit. Another overlooked point is that olive oil acts as a metabolic messenger. It signals a more stable internal environment, less inflammation, less arterial aggression, better vascular sensitivity. This does not create an immediate effect, but it builds conditions in which circulation responds better to sexual stimulation. That is why some men report gradual improvements in firmness, erection maintenance, and even the return of morning erections. This does not happen by chance. It is the result of blood vessels that are more protected, less inflamed, and more capable of relaxing when they receive the correct signal. Olive oil, when used properly, does not force the penis to work. It simply removes obstacles from the blood's path. And when the path becomes clearer, the body returns to doing what it never forgot how to do. Now comes the part that separates those who understand the mechanism from those who only consume information. How to use it. Olive oil can help circulation and penile response, but only when it enters the body at the right time, in the right amount, and with the right logic. Outside of that, it becomes just another dietary fat. After 50, the male body changes how it digests, absorbs, and responds to food. That means timing matters as much as content. The goal here is not to push energy or create artificial stimulation. It is to improve the internal environment so vessels can relax more easily. For most mature men, the smartest use of olive oil is in the evening, especially when circulation begins to slow and the body enters repair mode. At night, the vascular system should relax, inflammation should decrease, and the body should prepare for rebuilding. That is exactly when olive oil works best as physiological support. The ideal amount is small. 1 level tablespoon per day is enough to provide the necessary compounds without overloading digestion or increasing abdominal fat. More does not accelerate results. Excess weight in the stomach worsens reflux and metabolic resistance, both harmful to circulation and erectile response. Olive oil should always be consumed raw. Excessive heat destroys polyphenols and turns a vascular ally into a source of oxidative stress. The correct use is drizzled over food after cooking, at warm or cool temperature. It can be added to vegetables, salads, soups after the heat is turned off, or as part of a light evening meal. Consistency is essential. The endothelium does not change overnight. It responds to repeated signals. When the body receives the same message night after night, less inflammation, more vascular protection, it begins to adapt. That is why improvement is usually gradual, first in sleep, then in morning energy, and only later in erection quality. A common mistake is expecting immediate results and giving up too soon. Olive oil does not work as an emergency solution. It works as silent vascular training. Each day, the internal environment becomes slightly more favorable to blood flow, and when flow improves, penile response no longer depends on effort. It is also important not to use olive oil on nights sabotaged by excess sugar, alcohol, or very heavy meals. In those situations, blood is diverted to digestion, inflammation rises, and the benefit decreases. Olive oil helps when the body allows it to help. Used this way, a small amount, raw, at night, and consistently, olive oil does not force the penis to function. It simply creates the conditions for the body to respond naturally again. There is a reason many men say, "I used olive oil for a while and felt no difference." In most cases, the problem is not the olive oil, it is the context in which it is used. The vascular system does not respond to a single ingredient. It responds to the entire internal environment you create, and especially at night. The most common sabotage is nighttime sugar, desserts, snacks, excess fruit, sweetened milk, or foods that seem harmless. The second sabotage is nighttime alcohol. Many men believe it helps relaxation, but physiologically the opposite occurs. Alcohol fragments sleep, raises cortisol during the night, and reduces deep repair phases. The result is stiffer vessels in the morning, lower functional testosterone, and less responsive circulation. The third error is using olive oil as an extra calorie without adjusting the rest. Heavy nighttime meals divert blood to digestion. The body enters processing mode, not recovery mode. Peripheral circulation, including penile circulation, loses priority. There is also a more subtle but equally destructive error: immediate expectation. The man uses olive oil for 2 or 3 days, monitors his body like a test, sees no instant change, and decides it does not work. This constant monitoring activates anxiety, increases adrenaline, and constricts blood vessels. The psychological behavior itself closes the system he is trying to open. Another overlooked point is low-quality olive oil. Refined, oxidized oils, or those stored near heat and light, contain almost no active polyphenols. They provide fat but not vascular protection. The man believes he is doing something right, but biologically the signal is missing. All of this shows something simple. Olive oil does not protect against daily sabotage. It amplifies a favorable environment. When sugar, alcohol, overeating, and tension dominate the night, the vascular system goes into defensive mode. And in defense mode, the body does not invest in erections. Correcting these errors does not require perfection. It requires awareness. When sabotage is removed, olive oil stops fighting the internal environment and starts doing what physiology allows: improving flow, reducing vascular friction, and restoring predictability to the body's response. Up to this point, everything we discussed applies to most men over 50. But now I need to be clear. Not every body responds the same way, and there are situations where olive oil use requires attention. Ignoring this is not healthcare, and it is recklessness. Men with very low blood pressure or frequent drops in pressure should be cautious with strategies that favor vasodilation. Olive oil can enhance this effect. If you experience dizziness when standing, weakness, or darkening of vision, these signals should not be ignored. Men who regularly use anticoagulants or antiplatelet drugs also need attention. Olive oil contains compounds with mild effects on clotting. This is usually not a problem, but combined with blood-thinning medication, effects may add up. Frequent bruising, gum bleeding, or small bleeds are warning signs. Men with strong digestive sensitivity, severe reflux, or gallbladder issues may also react differently. Olive oil is still fat. At night, in sensitive systems, it may cause discomfort, heartburn, or bloating. Digestive stress never favors circulation or sexual response. It is also essential to understand that erection is an early cardiovascular marker. When a man does not respond to vascular support strategies, it may indicate more advanced plaque buildup, significant endothelial resistance, or metabolic issues like poorly controlled diabetes. In these cases, relying only on natural adjustments without medical evaluation wastes valuable time. Be cautious of absolute promises. Anyone guaranteeing immediate results for every man is ignoring basic biology. The body works through context, history, and adaptation. Olive oil's role, when properly used, is to support a system that still has response capacity. It does not replace medical evaluation, does not remove severe blockages, and does not ignore warning signs. Instead, it helps reveal whether the issue is environmental or something deeper. When a man understands this, he stops treating erections as a performance test and starts seeing them for what they are, a faithful reflection of overall circulation. And when observed intelligently, that reflection can protect not only sexual life but overall health. When circulation begins to improve, the first change is not performance. It is internal calm. The body stops feeling unpredictable. The man stops monitoring himself, stops testing, stops going on alert before contact even happens. That alone changes everything. Penile response returns as a consequence, not an effort. Many men describe it the same way. It was not an event, it was a process. First sleep improves. Then mornings feel less heavy. Daily energy increases. Circulation flows with less resistance. And then, without drama, erections happen with more firmness. And stay. Another silent but powerful sign is the gradual return of morning erections. They are not an obligation, but a reflection of vessels that can relax and fill during the night. When this returns, the man knows something real has changed inside. Confidence also returns differently. Not arrogance, not exaggerated expectation. It is the confidence of not needing to control every detail. Touch stops being a test. The moment stops being an exam. Sex becomes presence, not vigilance. And perhaps most importantly, the man understands that caring for circulation is not just about sex. It is about health, longevity, and autonomy. When blood vessels function better, everything functions better. The penis simply reveals what the whole body already feels. This is the point where many men say, it was not a trick, it was an adjustment. An adjustment that restored natural response, predictability, and peace of mind. And when that happens, sexuality stops being a source of concern and returns to where it always belonged, a healthy part of life. If this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel now to continue receiving clear, direct information based on real physiology. Like this video, it helps the channel grow and reach other men who need to understand their bodies, and be sure to watch the other videos on the channel, where I go deeper into topics directly connected to what you heard today. I will end here. Take care of your circulation, respect your body's signals, and I will see you in the next video.